So, well, episode 1 of the Chamber, as we're calling it. Monique, we're going to call it the Chamber? Yeah. All right, we're calling it the Chamber. And so the idea behind this is that we get to meet members of the Melbourne Chamber of Commerce, Melbourne Coburn Chamber of Commerce. We find out the stories behind the business, the people behind the business, and I thought you'd be a great person to have first. We had you speak a few months back, and you have a really interesting story I'd love to share with all the members. So if, to begin, you can start us off with a 2-minute overview, just a basic overview about who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Lance. It's fantastic to be the first person on the show. So my name is Nina Hjortlund, and as you can hear, that's not a typical Australian name. So originally I'm from Denmark, the country, not the town, in Northern Europe, and I've slowly made my way down here to Australia. Along the way, I also spent 13 years in Africa, which has definitely had a huge influence on my life, which is now I run a non-profit in Tanzania, in East Africa where I lived. So we provide healthcare and poverty reducing projects in Tanzania. What does that cover? It covers that we have built a hospital. We do outreach service for people who are too sick or don't know that they can be helped at the hospital. People with disabilities. We do a lot of agricultural projects. And we do a lot of skill-based training, plus climate change, planting trees, and a lot of eco-friendly practices in Tanzania. Apart from that, I also have another business that's called Swahili Sensations, where I import goods and homewares from Tanzania that I bring here to Australia and sell on my retail online store.
Awesome. So I'd love to hear about both sides of the business, the not-for-profit and the for-profit side.
Yep.
I underestimated how big your not-for-profit was when we first met. I thought it was just a little charity group you'd put together. So could you tell us a little bit about how big the not-for-profit is, the amount of people you actually employ, and the kind of things you've got them doing?
Absolutely. So as you said, it's grown quite a bit. We do provide services to about 35,000 people, and we cover an area of about 100 square kilometers. I'd say we work with a revenue about $500,000 a year. That's US dollars, because we work internationally, so everything is done in US. We are at the moment this year we are going to construct a new maternity ward, so we can expand our hospital with another 26 beds. We can have a surgical theatre. We can provide help to people who need cesareans, for example. Our hospital averages about 50 births a month. We see about 9,000 patients every month. I have a team of about 18 core staff and then another 35 staff in my hospital, and then we have government staff as well and volunteers. So it is quite a big organisation sort of on the other side. On this side it's just me though.
Yeah, great. And so what I'd love to talk about is a couple of things today. One, I'd love to hear about how you got started in this, because obviously it's not every day you wake up and think you want to start a charity group in Tanzania. And then the other thing is how you've actually gone about getting that funding for the not-for-profit, because I know from when we spoke last time, you're working collaboratively with really large organisations like mining and things like that to actually get that $500,000 a year. And I imagine $500,000 in Tanzania goes pretty far. So.
Absolutely. That allows us, for example, to do construction projects and to have a real impact where it really matters. So the way I started, I came to Tanzania on a holiday to start with. I didn't came out with a company. I didn't come out with the idea I was to save the world or to do anything the like. But a lot of coincidences happened, and I sort of got thrown in the deep end with the non-for-profit work. We started going out to an area, obviously seeing that people living in poverty in Tanzania, there is 67 million people, and 90% of these people live on less than $5 a day, which is not a whole lot when that has to cover everything from your housing to hospitals to schooling to whatever you may need. So we asked the people, made a survey, what are the biggest issues in the area, and the biggest issue was that they had no healthcare to access, and that's how we got started. Well, let's build a hospital. Let's start with that. Not that any of us had any experience in building hospitals and constructing anything for the matter.
Did you have any funding behind you at that time?
At that time, we had some people who had showed interest in doing something, but of course we hadn't quite priced it up yet, and there was a lot of fundraising that had to be done to make it happen, alongside working alongside the Tanzanian government and getting registered in the country. So the first couple of years was a lot of registration work before anything actually happened and the first shovel got in the ground. But it was time well spent, because we now have a really great working relationship with the Tanzanian government and with other governments that has been helpful in supporting our work.
So,
Yeah.
so tell us about the first project you did. What was involved? So that was the hospital, was it?
That was the hospital. We did a little bit of like school education and just tested out the waters with some other projects, but the first real big project that we got was the hospital and our outreach service. Our outreach service is medical officers. We had to teach them to drive off-road motorbikes, because the roads are not as we see the roads here. They're often dirt tracks, and there's lots of rocks and things that you have to navigate, so no cars can go there, not even four-wheel drive cars. So teaching them to ride off-road motorbikes, which is amazing when you see a little woman with a big off-road motorbike going out and provide medical care to people who have never seen a doctor before. It could be people who have cerebral palsy. We see a lot of diabetes, untreated diabetes, for example, for elderly people. It can be they've had a stroke, and in Tanzania there's not a whole lot of knowledge about how you can access help for these things and rehabilitation.
I guess that's the stuff we take for granted here, is that we've got things like Dial a Doctor and we've got Silver Chain and all these services.
Absolutely, and we
much
can go and see
free.
a GP, you know, within a phone call in a couple of days we can go and see a GP.
Yeah, we don't have to traverse like an off-road track to get there either. Like it's
No, exactly,
very different.
exactly, absolutely. And also we have a knowledge that certain things can be treated, or this is not just normal aging, or this is not, just the will of God that I had an injury and that now this is how I must live. So on top of that, also giving people the skills and the knowledge to when to provide first aid, when you have to go to the hospital, drinking clean water, what can dirty water, what diseases can you get from dirty water, because that is something we also take for granted, having that knowledge.
Yeah. So that education component around health is...
Absolutely, it's massive. It's a huge part of what we do.
Yeah. And what sort of things are you educating them on that we would overlook? Is it simple things like sanitary
Absolutely.
water?
Simple thing, sanitary water. It's about don't go to toilet where you're also collecting water. Yeah, absolutely, because that's been done for decades, and there's been no connection. People that we work with, 75% of them have no further schooling than grade 4. So it's fairly limited, their educational level. They have not had the opportunity to travel. They haven't been to a big city. For example, they've never been to a bank.
Yep.
So when we teach women to do business, for example, we teach them at the same time to use a smartphone and do online banking, which is also a foreign concept to a lot of people, because they've never seen a bank. They don't know what a bank can do. They don't know what interests are. So people come and tell them they can have a loan. It's like, oh great, you're giving me money. But they don't understand necessarily that it has to be given back with an interest.
Yeah.
And that can put somebody in a very dire situation.
Yeah, that's amazing. Just such simple things we grow up with in our community.
Absolutely.
That we just completely take for granted. It's so different there.
Yeah.
So from those projects, you've gone from doing things like hospitals, education. What has the not-for-profit become now? So you just sort of touched on educating women in business. Do you want to go into a bit more about some of these other services that you now provide?
Yeah, so one of our big things is that we want to teach women to grow mushrooms. There's a big reason why we are focusing on mushrooms, is because it meets a nutritional deficit that we see in people. So there's a lot of iron, proteins, folate and other minerals and vitamins that people are deficient of, which causes a lot of disabilities in babies being born. This can be met by eating fresh mushrooms, or at least be helped on the way. And mushrooms has the benefit that they don't need to be grown in the ground, in the land. We can grow them in buckets, so the women don't need to own land, which can often be an issue. And there's a quick return on investment by mushrooms taking 8 to 10 weeks from you plant them to you harvest them. So in that sense, it's a good business model, and it's also a business model that eventually we can move over to the retail business, because we can dry them, create a long-term shelf life on the mushrooms, and then import them to Australia. So the goal end is for you to be able to buy them on the shelf in your local store.
That's such a brilliant idea. That's super cool. And mushrooms is such a simple thing to implement that maybe has been overlooked a lot.
Absolutely.
In the past.
A lot of these people, they've never seen a mushroom before. So that is also one of the barriers that we are going to work with. So we're going to teach them how to cook the mushrooms. We are teaching them how to grow them to international standards, to use purified water, so there's no residue of any heavy metals or anything from the water, which again also gives them an incentive to drink clean water, so we have less waterborne diseases and we have less infections passing through unsanitized water.
So just before we move to the for-profit side of the business, do you want to talk about the infrastructure that you have over in Tanzania? So you've actually got a complete not-for-profit running with a big team there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people won't be aware of how big that actually is. So can you go into how big your support team is there?
Absolutely. So we have, our head office is in a town called Mwanza, which is the second largest city in Tanzania. We have a full system there, accountants, office managers, a general manager, we have field officers, we have project managers, and then we have downstream project managers around. So it is quite a big implementation group that I have, plus we have all the hospital staff to run the hospitals, where we have doctors and nurses and midwives and cleaners and maintenance people and pumping, so it's not like running a hospital here. For example, we have no running water and no electricity where we work, so we have to pump our own water from the lake, have a pumping station, clean our water, filter it, and then provide it to the hospital. Likewise, we have both a generator system and we have solar power and batteries and inverters to be able to provide 24-hour electricity to our hospital. So a lot of people just working on the maintenance, on the ground, also because we see climate change, so if there's flooding. When there's flooding, it's not only the water that comes up, it's also the crocodiles and the snakes and the waterborne diseases. So lots of things that we would normally have to think about.
How big would the team be, approximately?
Probably about 50 people all up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And so I want to touch on how you're actually getting funding for this, because most not-for-profits just depend on donations and they struggle to actually get that funding and
Absolutely.
get those donations. But you've found a pretty good way of making that happen.
Absolutely.
That actually serves the local community and serves the local business community as well. So
absolutely, absolutely, because nobody wants to go out and be begging for money. It's like, oh, now can you give me money again? And also, people get fatigued of listening to these stories. So what we do, we would like to partner with businesses. It can be businesses that do business in Tanzania, in Africa, or not at all. It's people who have a management group with an interest in global welfare, really. So we have small projects, we have large projects, we partner up and deliver community empowering stories on their behalf. So if you're a company, you say, well, I have $5,000 I want to spend in doing something for the greater good that I can put on my website, I can make a story that we as a business, we're supporting something in the world. We can partner up with you and say, what are you into? Are you into education? Are you into healthcare? Are you into agriculture? What would you like the project to entail? And we will help you and deliver a project that fits into your category, to your core values, and something that will heighten your profile, however you want to put it, online or in your magazine or out to your customers.
Yeah. Can you give us a specific example of
Absolutely,
that?
Absolutely. We have one Australian company, Capital Drilling. They are sponsoring half of the construction of the new maternity ward, and that is part of their community empowerment program that they would like to put out in the world. We have another company, they're setting up tailoring schools where we can educate 20 women every 3 months. They get a tailoring skill, and then we set them up with their own combined business, so they don't just get the skill and then get left we then help them for the next 6 months to actually get some business under the belt and to get their own sewing machines and to get them further on going. So we deal with many different projects. It can be high-end projects that has $100,000 value or a $5,000 project, and they're both equally important and equally makes a difference.
That's awesome. I love that. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Absolutely.
Tell us about the for-profit side of the business now. So
Sure.
you've got Swahili Sensations, is that right?
Yes, Swahili Sensations.
Yeah, right.
Swahili is the language that is spoken in East Africa.
Can you speak Swahili?
I can, because there's not much English, so I had to learn the hard way on the street. My grammar is a bit bad, but I can get by. So Swahili Sensations is give you a sensation of East Africa in your home. It can be blankets, baskets, some jewellery, and also showcasing that some of the handcrafts coming out of East Africa are really, really good quality. We have blankets that are sewn on huge handlooms, good big old-fashioned ones, and I don't know how they do it, but they do all this handlooming, and there's red dirt everywhere, but there's not a speck of red dirt on whatever they're weaving.
Have you got pictures of it online?
Absolutely.
We'll overlay it here.
Yes, absolutely.
Through the power of magical editing. That'd be great.
Yes, absolutely.
So, what other examples of stuff do you offer?
So we have baskets, we have earrings. The Maasai women, they do a lot of beaded earrings. That is their traditional way of doing their own jewellery. We have then worked with them to make some that has a bit more Western design, but still incorporate the old way of doing the beading. So it's a good cooperation or collaboration. We also, every time I go to Tanzania, I go out and speak to the artisans who are making the products and handpick the items that I bring back and import back to Australia. So every single thing has been through my hands before it comes back here.
Yeah, so you're supporting their local economy.
Absolutely. So we don't have a middleman. I go directly to these women or the men who are producing these things, and I go and see the production line. I go and see how it's made, and the money goes directly to them, and it's not done on consignment. I buy it up front from them, so I carry the risk, so they don't have to carry the risk. Cool. It's an opportunity for them to reach a market that they wouldn't otherwise be able to reach.
So do you store everything here?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you have a storage facility for it? Or is it
my house is full of stuff.
As it usually is, yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. One day I will have a storage room.
Do you usually sell to individuals or is it businesses?
It's a bit of both. So sometimes, throughout the year, it's normally individual that buys. Often at Christmas, for example, we have handmade small decoration items and whatever that can be bought up in bulk, and people do pre-order stuff, so we can sell for businesses to corporates to give out to their customers, or so it's a meaningful thing other than just whatever card or glass, bottle of wine or the typical chocolate or whatever, but something that really stands out and has a meaningful or meaning behind it.
That's great. So we're coming towards the end of our time. Is there anything else you want to share with the local chamber members?
I just think to be able to look beyond yourself and beyond Australia, that there's also business to be done and things that can impact your own business locally by thinking globally. I think that's really important.
So if we have anyone in the chamber that would like to get in touch with you for either one, donating towards your not-for-profit, or two, buying from the Swahili Sensations,
yes,
what's the best way of them to get in touch?
You can always contact me on my email, which I guess we can put on the screen.
Put it here. What was the website?
The website is australiaforcedartanzania.org or swahilisensations.com.
Done. Put it in the link.
Absolutely, perfect. So, and I'm always at the other end of the email or the other end of a phone call, so feel free to contact me and we can work something. We work by tailoring projects towards each individual and each individual business.
It's a great idea. And then one last thing, we'll just try and do like a glowing review for the chamber. What benefits have you got from joining the local Chamber of Commerce?
Meeting people like you, being on a podcast, and getting a better knowledge, with businesses going around locally. I obviously didn't grow up here, so getting a professional network has been really important to me, and getting a network that, I know I can always come and ask for help.
Great. And if there's someone sitting on the fence thinking about joining or coming down to an event, what would you say?
Try to come down to some of the events and see the fantastic workshops that have been going on. They've been really helpful in lots of varied, subjects. That's been always something that's there for somebody.
There's always good workshops and content going on.
Absolutely.
Throughout the months.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I say to everyone, just come down as a guest, check us out,
Yeah.
have a few drinks, have a bit of pizza and
Absolutely.
enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. Anything else you want to add?
No, I
We're
think
done?
that was really good.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll give you 5 stars. That was fantastic. Really good job. Thanks, Dana. Thanks for that.
Thanks.